Hello everyone, I'm Jack Fisher and welcome to my world. And when it comes to villains, I think we're in a golden age of sorts. Villains are no longer the mustache-twirling evildoers we remember from Saturday morning cartoons. We've all come to expect them to have a certain level of depth. We also expect them to be developed characters, just like the heroes they fight against. And I say this is an objectively good thing. Raising the bar for villains is good for all characters, including the heroes. But as good a development as this is, there's still a place for villains who are just completely unapologetically evil. But what makes a villain truly evil? That's a question with many answers. And the world of fiction is full of all sorts of cruel, sadistic, greedy antagonists, ranging from renegade gods to alien conquerors to corrupt business types to psychotic killer clowns. They're all evil in their own unique way. And most of the time, there's a context to that evil. One that makes for a complex story that describes their descent into villainy. Then there's Alexander Joseph Luthor, aka Lex Luthor. For him, little context is necessary. In terms of pure, unadulterated villainy, he's the standard by which all others are measured. And even in today's era of complex villainy, he still finds a way to stand out. Because whereas Superman is a paragon of virtue, selflessness, and compassion, Lex Luthor is the polar opposite. Think back to the question I asked earlier about what makes a villain evil. Overall, Lex Luthor checks every box and even a few you probably didn't think of. Because as important as it is to appreciate all the values that Superman represents, it's just as important to appreciate the other end of that spectrum. To that end, it's also necessary to understand the villainous traits that Lex Luthor personifies. Because he really isn't some complex, conflicted villain in the mold of Walter White, Magneto, or Eric Killmonger. In fact, one of Lex Luthor's most defining traits as a villain comes back to just how basic it is. Lex is, at his core, a selfish narcissist. He needs no catalyst or motivation. Nothing made him that way. There was no single event that sent him down this path. He is, by his own nature, an arrogant egomaniac who will go to any length to get what he wants, regardless of the cost. It doesn't matter how right or wrong it is. All that matters is he gets results. Despite that simple, if not inelegant approach to villainy, Lex Luthor still elevates himself above many other villains. And it's not just because he's Superman's primary adversary either. In many respects, Lex represents something that highlights the unique nature of pure, unadulterated villainy. Like most iconic villains, Lex Luthor's status was closely tied to that of his rival, Superman. When he first appeared in Action Comics number 23 in 1940, he didn't get much development or backstory. He was simply another arch-nemesis who tested Superman more than most. But over the years, Lex Luthor's story has evolved, even though the extent of his villainy has never really waned. Through that evolution, Lex establishes a blunt but powerful method to his madness. He is, at his core, all about serving his ego. Whereas most people, real or fictional, have a certain balance of selflessness and selfishness, there really is no balance in Lex Luthor. There isn't a single altruistic cell in his body. Everything he does for one purpose: to profit and glorify himself. It doesn't matter whether he's battling Superman or creating a community of low-income housing. It all comes back to serving him and his interests. In the same way you can assume that every decision Superman makes is in the name of truth, justice, and the American way, you can also assume that everything Lex Luthor does is in the name of benefiting Lex Luthor. Because even by Ayn Rand standards, Lex's motivations are extremely selfish. And to some extent, that makes him even more devious. In his endless crusade to serve himself, Lex will portray himself as a hero who is out to use his unrivaled genius to make the world a better place. From time to time, he will save the world. He'll even work with Superman. He's done so in the comics, movies, and the various CW shows. But even when Lex is doing the right thing, it's never just because it's the right thing. It always comes back to Lex serving his own personal agenda. And from a purely practical standpoint, he understands that no one can glorify him if the world is destroyed. So for him, being a hero every now and then is still very self-serving. Now, he's not the only villain who will walk that line. Characters like Doctor Doom, Thanos, and Darkseid definitely fit the mold of a villain, but they also have motivations that go beyond their ego. You can even argue that villains like Doctor Doom often blur that line frequently because their actions sometimes align with what most consider to be the greater good. But with Lex Luthor, there are no blurred lines. He is not Doctor Doom in that he feels he needs to rule the world to ensure that it's free from want and suffering. From Lex's point of view, ruling the world and destroying Superman are simply a means to fuel his narcissism. That's what makes him so dangerous, but it also reveals something profound about villainy itself. To some extent, Lex Luthor's villainy is a byproduct of being entirely self-serving and having no inclinations for selfless acts altogether. Whereas most people will feel some level of guilt for that level of selfishness, Lex feels nothing of the sort. That's not to say he's a full-blown psychopath on the level of some serial killers. He just feels he deserves all this power and aggrandizing. It's in that domain where Lex's rivalry with Superman becomes truly adversarial. Because unlike Superman, Lex is completely human. He just happens to be the smartest human in the world, as well as one of the smartest beings in the entire DC universe. He doesn't just think he's better than anyone else, he can definitively prove it. That's how he's able to craft insanely advanced technologies and elaborate schemes. It's also how he managed to get elected President of the United States in the comics at one point. Because it's not enough to just have a massive ego. He's smart, cunning, and ruthless enough to outwit anyone into serving him. There's simply no way for anyone else to match him on an intellectual level. And that's where Superman enters the equation. That's also what fuels Lex's unparalleled hatred of him. Because from Lex's point of view, the very existence of Superman undermines his inherent superiority. Whereas he's a man who became superior through intellect and cunning, Superman is this super powerful alien being. His superiority is literally built into his alien biology. Just being on this planet makes him powerful. And for that reason, as well as plenty of others, Lex sees Superman's presence as a degrading force to the human race as a whole. It's a sentiment that isn't often explored in the comics or movies. However, it was perfectly articulated in the animated feature All-Star Superman. Seriously, if you ever want a perfect demonstration of Superman's heroism or Lex Luthor's villainy, this movie is still the gold standard. And at one point in this story, Lex tells Clark Kent outright why he hates Superman so much. And setting aside all the ego and condescension, he actually makes some distressingly valid points. He argues that, in light of Superman's impossible ideals for strength and morality, every human being falls short. They'll never be as good or as powerful as him. They'll never be as strong or as capable as him. Even him, Lex Luthor, the smartest human of them all, cannot hope to match him. That's not just insulting to him personally, it undermines the entire human species. The existence of an alien, godlike being reduces humans to a bunch of ants under the boot of a titan. And by relying on this being, looking to him as this unattainable ideal, people can only ever hope to be better ants, nothing more. But even if that thinking is valid on some perverse level, Lex Luthor takes it so much further by making it the ultimate excuse. By establishing Superman as an affront to his rightful place at the top of humanity's hierarchy, he can justify pretty much anything. Read into his history. You won't find any shortage of atrocities. Hell, the man stole 40 cakes for crying out loud. If that's not pure evil, I don't know what is. And because of Lex's antipathy towards Superman, he also rejects any notion of truth, justice, and the American way. To him, these concepts are inherently flawed. They're vague notions that can't be touched, measured, or quantified. That makes them useless at best, and a hindrance at worst. In Lex Luthor's world, the only thing that matters is what he can do with these forces and how they can be used to glorify his ego. As a villain, Lex doesn't live in a world of abstract ideals or faith. His world is cold, calculating, and deterministic. Much like Superman, he puts a face and a name to a particular archetype. But unlike Superman, he doesn't inspire hope or compassion. He inspires fear, hatred, and mistrust. By standing against Superman, challenging him in ways that even godlike beings can't match, Lex Luthor demonstrates just how far someone can take true, unadulterated villainy. In Lex's world, nothing is ever given. It's either earned, taken, or stolen. Things like compassion, empathy, and love are weaknesses and never strengths. They are barriers to overcome, not values to embrace. Even by most villain standards, that kind of extreme callousness is excessive. It undermines the very core of our humanity. It highlights just how cold and unfeeling someone can be. It's disturbing, and the fact that Lex does all this as an ordinary human is what makes him all the more menacing. Superman is a beloved heroic icon, and for good reason. He represents the best to which we can all aspire. However, the extent of those aspirations are hard to appreciate without also acknowledging the villainous side of that struggle. It's not unreasonable to say that Superman is the hero he is because he has a villain like Lex Luthor to battle. And Lex Luthor is a villain not because Superman made him that way. He was always a selfish, ruthless egotist. Superman just brings out the worst extremes in his villainous tendencies. Even in the absence of Superman, Lex would still be the kind of person who hurts, exploits, and deceives everyone into serving his agenda. He just doesn't care. He doesn't even bother trying. He's all about himself and no one else. If that means saving the world or destroying it, so be it. That, more than anything, is what makes him the ultimate villain. Thanks for watching, everyone, and thanks for joining me in my world. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Take care, and stay safe.